Akhenaten was an Egyptian pharaoh of the late 18th dynasty. He ruled from approximately 1353 to 1336 BC. He was also referred to as the Leper King and was exiled from Egypt during his 17th year of rule. After the Great Cataclysm, the Druids spread out all over the world, bringing their knowledge and culture to different peoples. They were able to share many aspects of civilization and help usher humanity back into a world of peace and prosperity. Some of the ancient Irish subsequently ended up in pre-dynastic Egypt. Those who learned Druidic tradition eventually became known as the Amen, or the Amenists. They worshipped the sun god Amun-Ra. Akhenaten did not worship Amun-Ra, yet chose to follow the god Aten. Akhenaten, his family, his ministers, and anybody who accepted this god were known as Atenists. The Atenists were the rivals of the Amenists. This brought about different factions within Egypt. There was a pharaoh of the north and a pharaoh of the south. There were those who worshipped Aten and those who worshipped Amun-Ra. Both of these groups participated in solar cultism, as they both worship the sun. However, the Atenists followed a corrupted version of solar cultism. King Tutankhaten, commonly known as King Tut, was the son of Akhenaten. After his father was exiled, he changed his name to Tutankhamen, renouncing the god his father imposed on the nation and returning to the worship of Amun-Ra. He spent much time trying to reverse what his father had done. One of Tutankhamun's many titles was the living face of the sun. His tomb was excavated by Lord Carnarvon. This excavation was funded by the Rothschild dynasty, who Lord Carnarvon was personally related. It is theorized that the story of Jesus Christ may have been loosely based off of the story of Tutankhamun. Interestingly enough, the name Tutankhamun was translated from hieroglyphics. This leaves a large margot for error. Egyptologist Mustafa Gadala is very adamant on his belief that the TUT we see at the beginning of the name is more accurately translated as DWD, or DVD or DVD. Assuming this to be true, this would be the origination of the name David. In fact, David is not a name at all, but a title. It historically was used to refer to the kings of the 18th Egyptian dynasty, who were also the Atenists. The title had a similar meaning to general, commander, etc. We also derive the words dove and divide from David. Division was not a common term or practice in ancient time. The dividers were those who understood geometry, the science of geometry, the science of geomancy, and also architecture. These were experts at architecture, also known as masons. The white dove is an often used cryptic insignia for the house or seed of David, which included the cult of Aten. Dove in Spanish is Columba, giving us the Knights of Columba, giving us the Knights of Columba, etc. The dove can even be seen on the maces and standards of the British royals, possible descendants of the House of David. Queen Nefertiti was the second wife of Akhenaten and could have possibly been of Irish or Scythian descent. She also draws parallels to Mary from the Bible. Even though she bore 6 daughters to Akhenaten, her Aryan looks had made her particularly attractive to the viewer, and this description was also applied to some of the amazingly life, like plaster cast masks. In 1927, the keeper of Egyptian antiquities at the British Museum described one of them as being not that of an Egyptian nor a Semite. It is that of a northerner. It is a Nordic type. Akhenaten had to marry her in order to become the pharaoh, meaning that she was already an elite within the society. A pharaoh becomes king by marrying the queen with the legal title. Women were entrusted with the society. The princess was the heir to the throne, and the man she chose to marry would be king. It is possible that Nefertiti could have been a descendant of the ancient Irish that scattered during the cataclysm. Her unique name did not have the signs of nobility typical in Egyptian society. The fact that her name meant a beautiful woman comes, coupled with her complete absence of family history, supports the argument that she was indeed European. It is unknown what happened to her. Yet it is believed that she fell out of favor with the king, and scholars continue to argue about what happened to her after that. Aten was depicted as a solar disk, and it was Akhenaten's personal god. Akhenaten would worship him in the temple of Akhenaten. The lion had always been symbolic of the pharaoh, and Akhenaten had himself depicted as a lion worshiping Aten. This is believed to be the foundation of the Lion of Judea. The lion is now a ubiquitous symbol all over the world, yet we never pay much attention to it. Lions in a pyramid even sit upon the coronation chair of the kings and queens of England. He also referred to himself as the architect, once again providing a link to the Masons. Another controversial possible link to the Bible is the theory that Akhenaten may have been Moses himself. Many believe they were rivals, but it may not be insane to consider every possibility. Manetho states that Moses received his priestly education and learned all the wisdom of the Egyptians in the city of Heliopolis. In the Delta, the biblical city of One, the house of the sun. It is believed that Dr. Sigmund Freud was murdered by Rothschild agents after publishing his findings from Tutankhamun's tomb in his book Moses and Monotheism. It is believed that this book cost him his life in 1939. Akhenaten made it known that he and he alone was the courier for divine life in Egypt. He renounced all other deities and made Aten the sole god of Egypt, and he was the only one who could mediate between Egypt and Aten. At the end of Great Hymn to Aten, it clearly states that nobody knows Aten except for his son. This is the first recorded instance of monotheism in history. The Amenists had historically been very tolerable of other religions and did not view theology as a matter or prejudice or dominance. This all changed during the 18th dynasty with Akhenaten. He became fanatical, closing temples and forbidding the worship of other deities. The introduction of monotheism brought about bloodshed and mass suffering. Amenists believed that Amun-Ra was the king of all gods and the most important. However, they still acknowledged and respected the existence of other gods. The Atenists did not tolerate the existence of other gods. Akhenaten was a stranger to Egypt at the beginning of his reign. He was never mentioned during the rule of his father, which is unusual for a prince. Heir. His father had many depictions of his wife and daughters commissioned, yet no trace of Akhenaten. He was likely wandering from country to country during his youth. There is no mention of him at all during the time that his father ruled. His father did attempt to reform the religion of Egypt, yet his discussion of Aten led many to have false beliefs about the character of Akhenaten and the nature of the cult of Aten. Akhenaten believed himself to be the physical incarnation of Aten. The era of Akhenaten brought about religious persecution, widespread destruction, and an almost complete economic collapse. The people of Egypt decided they had enough and exiled him, also attempting to wipe every trace of him off of the planet. He was a ruler who had isolated himself from the population and surrounded himself with people to feed his delusion. He commissioned depictions of him as a deity, a divine messenger from the cosmos. Dr. Elliot Smith also pointed out the distorted skull of Akhenaten, hinting that maybe he was really half insane.